connecting to a real world-class person is more paramount today than it's ever been, and Kea is very much in that business of connecting domestic New Zealand firms to really influential, world-class, high-impact Kiwis, we call them. And I think that's absolutely relevant more than ever.
What is the environment like out there for New Zealand firms trying to make it internationally?
It's exciting and it's horribly scary, to be honest. You know, I've had a career in finance, and I thought I knew a bit about the world of volatility. The world's more volatile today than it ever has been, right through from really nasty, unsavoury things that are happening through to the speed of disruption. And really in that world is you need a friend, and Kea provides that friend. It really connects a business that's trying to go offshore, that might be a little bit scared, a little bit unsure, to someone really to do a warm call that can hold their hand and use their own personal kind of scars and war stories to help them out and sort of show them the way, really.
Does it really work though in the hard school of business, say in the US?
Yeah, it does. In fact, the US are brilliant at it themselves. So I had so much time in New York, and you see the alumni networks of Yale and Harvard and these schools, and they use their own alumni incredibly well. They wouldn't go into a business meeting without sort of finding some alumni. And New Zealand can absolutely do that. We can do that at a national level, and I think we did some work a few years ago. I think 80% of the big firms offshore have a Kiwi somewhere in their ranks. So if we just take that time and effort to try and connect with a Kiwi that can help them out, it works all right. Yeah.
How do you think New Zealand companies are actually doing on the world stage at the moment?
Oh, there's some fabulous success stories and there's some shockers. That's just the landscape. I think as a general rule of thumb, we're probably not quite as match fit as we could be. I know a lot of the firms that we see, and NZT and others, are heading offshore. They probably go a little bit prematurely, not quite researched enough, just haven't aren't quite on their game. So that's sort of one thing. I think the second thing is they're probably not ambitious enough. In New Zealand, we talk about the beach and the batch and the BMW. We compare that to US firms that really they're there to change the world, and those ambition gaps are different. So we need to bridge those a bit if they want to be seriously competitive.
Why do you think Kiwis are lacking that ambition then? I mean, we have it on the rugby field, but we seem to lack ambition in business.
I think we've got away without having to have that edge for so many years. Someone told me a story the other day about the Kiwi, and it's a flightless bird, and it got along just fine for for a few decades or whatever. Unfortunately today there's weasels and stoats everywhere, right? And we need a different strategy. And I think that casual Kiwiana kind of number 8 wire thing can be great, because it can kind of give you confidence just to kind of go in all pointy elbows and have a crack, but it's also a detriment that it's not quite bleeding edge, I call it, as we probably need to be. So it's kind of cool, but it's also, I think it needs to be mixed up a bit actually.
Is the instability being caused perhaps by the Trumps and the Brexits at the moment? Is that an opportunity for a country like us, or does that actually make it harder?
Depends very much on the business. It is an opportunity. I think there's been. I think we saw Burger Fuel and the hamburger business doing stuff in the Middle East. Because that's the US Trump piece that it. So I think we're small and flexible and kind of friendly enough to most of the global economies that I think we can we can duck and dive and find our little niche. We're small enough we don't. California is more than a big enough market for us. We don't need the US, so we can totally find our space in these marketplaces.
As a former foreign exchange trader, is the New Zealand dollar too high at the moment? We've seen it creeping back up over 70 US again.
I think it's fine, to be honest. In the big picture, I see Kiwi as a 60-80 currency, and we're kind of in the middle of that band. I think we've got very good as a nation to deal with currency volatility. I think we sell ourselves on, so many other things than price. It's about, ingenuity and kind of uniqueness and natural environment and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's still our selling point, not whether it's 68 or 72.
You worked in the US for a long time. How is Donald Trump being viewed now in that country?
Oh, it's tough. I was there for the last 2 weeks actually. It's quite funny. No one wants to talk about Trump anymore. It's as if like he's embarrassed us too much, or we just don't want to. We're just bored of that topic. The negative side that we know is out there. The positive side, and the New York Times just released an article when I was there talking about the top 200 CEO salaries, highest they've ever been. So I think people are quietly like, gosh, things are trucking along pretty nicely for Team USA, and that's good. Yes, we're getting some negative volatility in the press about our leader, but net, we'll just kind of put our head down and hope it sort of dies down a bit, and we'll be okay. I think that's the sentiment really.
Is there a view that people are too critical of Trump, that it's all negative, and that there's a lack of objectivity now around him?
No, it depends on the group you talk to. The New Yorkers thought it's okay. Californians think it's an embarrassment. Depends what industry you're in, so it's pretty hard to generalise on that one. I think if you're in the steel industry, it's about America, all that stuff. They were really proud of what he's doing, and he's honouring what they voted him in for. If you're against those policies, you'll bitch and moan. So it's pretty hard to generalise.
Are you enjoying this job? I mean, you've been in it a little while now. What's your own thoughts around it?
Oh, I love this job actually. This is, I had a career in finance, but it's really been in sort of the sales people space, and to get around the world and see these world-class Kiwis doing so well that actually want to help our New Zealand firms, and to do it at a national level is great. I like picking. In a perfect world, I'd like to sit down and read autobiographies of all these amazing people in the world. I kind of get to do it real time now, and you hear their stories, and I think at Kea we've tried to not only just sort of tell these inspiring stories of what these cool people have done, but we're trying to use their relationships and their knowledges to help New Zealand firms, and that actually feels really good. It's one thing to sort of tell the inspiring stories because we all like that. It's another thing to use those skill sets to give others a leg up, and that's good for the country, and that feels good, and that's fun.
Craig, I'd like to talk to you now about the Kea World Class Awards. Can you tell me the stories behind this year's winners?
So we recognise our amazing world-class Kiwis. We try and find names that people haven't heard of. Paris is probably more well known than Ian Wright. So it's really about folks that have exceeded in their own area of specialty, but also sort of in that give back mode back to New Zealand, that's starting to do stuff, that's trying to be a real mentor for New Zealand firms heading offshore. So, Ian Wright, we drove his electric trucks last week, absolutely incredible, and I think New Zealand's really lacking in the electric space. The Silicon Valley in particular is all over it. So to see someone like that trying to do deals with Auckland Transport and Wellington Transport to get electric buses and things, fabulous. And so that's good world class stuff. I was looking at Paris's, the people that she's entertained or choreographed. The Biebs, Justin Bieber, J-Lo, Rihanna, like it's just the world stage of top names, and to kind of have New Zealanders even in that space that want to give back and help our latest hip hop groups and artists, etc., to go through and realise their dream is really cool.